what you accept, baby. Check your mindset. If you want a different life, you gotta raise the price. Expect what you accept.
Hello, welcome to Expect What You Accept podcast. I'm your host, Doretha Bailey. On these shows, we will have topics around identity, mindset, and transformation. What I want this to be is a mirror and a guide. Either if you are a leader at home or a leader in the business world. We all have had moments in our lives where we have shrunken to make others feel comfortable. Here, we want you to be the best version of yourself so we can be the best version of ourselves. I want to take this time to introduce me so you get an opportunity to understand the host and why I wrote the book, Expect What You Accept. Expect What You Accept, the book, is about the silent agreements we make that cause us to shrink. It's that little doubt that comes in that has been planted by someone else and not ourselves. And sometimes we classify that as fear, imposter syndrome. But at the end of the day, it really is about the treatment and what we have accepted throughout life. In the book, I share some really raw, vulnerable moments. Why did I do that? Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And regardless of all of the accolades, regardless of the titles that I hold as a mother, daughter, leader, executive, as well as a soldier and a veteran, sometimes life has a way of knocking us down. It does not discriminate. It happens to every single one of us. So if we're able on this podcast to reach someone who is going through a storm, this is what we're here for. You're going to be able to meet people with great stories, but they have some rough times to get through some of those to see the light at the end of the day. Each of the chapters, well, let's say majority of the chapters that are written have been things that people have said to me. Be called, for example, the pink elephant in the room. Another one is your father told me to divorce you. So it gets that raw. One of the things that we often do in our lives is feel, especially in the workplace, that our personal lives do not come into the workplace. That's not true. It does. It comes out on what we accept from leaders, what we expect from our coworkers, what we allow in from a treatment perspective of how we treat others and how we allow others to treat us. There's times in our lives where we lose our voice. You got to get to the root cause of why and when you lost your voice. Also, there are times that you're at the table and you're wondering, why am I at the table? Or why am I not at the table? There are times that you want to go out and do something that no one else in your family has done. But there's nothing wrong with being a trailblazer. Remember, pressure builds diamonds. But journeys are not easy, and one person's journey is not the same as the other. However, we all have peaks and valleys in our life. It's just how do we get through it? How do we navigate through it? So it is not a how-to book. It literally is a guide. It's insight. It's to let you know that you're not alone. It'll let you know when you're sitting in that room and you want to be called, for example, Jeffrey. And somebody says, I'm going to go ahead and call you Jeff. That's a compromise that we make, that we start losing ourselves, because in all actuality, that's not what you want to be called. For example, my name is Doretha. For years, I allowed people to call me D because of the fact that they said it was too hard to pronounce, or they would mess it up and I wouldn't correct them. However, my name is a gift. That's the very first thing that's given to you is your name. Mine happens to be inherited. So if that's the first gift that was given to you, why are you allowing others to take it away? So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that we can have lots of conversations. And most importantly, I hope that this helps change somebody's life for the better. So you can be the best version of yourself, and I can be the best version of myself. I don't have all the answers. None of us do. So we're going to go through this journey together. So I realized I had to write the book now 7 years ago. It took me 6 years to write the book. People were saying to me, period, you need to write a book. And I've always used to love writing. I've done it before as a kid, won awards for poetry and all that stuff in writing. But there was a time that I just stopped writing. And when I think about it, I do remember one person told me I wasn't a good writer, and I allowed that to be my reality. So I stopped. So I would always kind of do it on the side. So that fear actually kind of crippled me, and why it took me 6 years, I believe. But at the same time, I had some healing I needed to do, because if I was going to sit there and reach out to others, I need to be able to come from a place of being healed and be able to do so. And again, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is when I came back and I looked at everything that I had, because I had notes everywhere. I had it on napkins, on phone notes, as well as, laptop, just like they were kind of everywhere, and putting them together. I had them written out in notebooks. And I realized I was angry. And that wasn't who I was now. And by then, I've been mentoring a lot of people. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. So my voice was more refined, and it was my own. And when I was writing the book, I wasn't writing it from the perspective of me having a conversation with you. And I'd rather it be a conversation with you versus me talking to you or at you. So I wanted to make sure that I was ready to be authentic, make sure that I am sharing stuff that helped me along the way, and how to just reshift how you think about something, as well, is because workforce trauma is real, right? Well, workplace trauma is real. But you also have traumas that happen in your life, but you also have joys that happen, as well, too. And when you go through different perspectives and different situations, you get different perspectives, if that makes sense, because you're seeing things a little bit differently versus just one-noted, or this has only been my experience, so I'm going to automatically assume that this happens all the way across the board. So an example of that is I have been in meetings before and someone has cut me off, and it was intentional. So, and I'm ready to sit there and bite this person's head off. However, where I've gotten to in my place was sit back, observe first to see if it's just you or they do it to anybody else. Come to find out, they were cutting everybody off. And it wasn't just a me thing. But imagine if I would have taken that onto that person, and I'm accusing them of something that wasn't really what was taking place, because of the fact of what has happened somewhere else. So it's one of those things of self-accountability is in this as well. It's not just looking at what others have said or done to you. What have you done to yourself? What are the things that you are telling yourself as well? So at the end of the day, it's self-care that turns into self-love. As a child, I'm smiling because I didn't care what anybody thought. I had a good time. It's one of those things that I always spoke the truth, even if it would get me in trouble. And I used to hear all the time, my dad would tell me, your nonverbals are going to get you in trouble, because it was just written all over my forehead. Even though I wasn't saying anything and I'm thinking I'm being respectful, it was just like, you could tell what was going on. I would go do something and then pay for the consequences later. I just lived life on my own. Love history, still do, science, museums. But I didn't allow anything or anyone to tell me what I could and couldn't do. Love fashion, love sports. I just was carefree. I lived and grew up overseas. I was born in England, raised in Germany and Japan. I moved to the States when I was 16 years old. So that, when I think about it too, that's probably when I kind of shifted a little bit, because here I am in this new world trying to understand it, really, like, who am I? From that, because I would always get the questions, where are you from? What do you mean, where are you from? I've never had that question. I didn't know what that meant. So I would say wherever my parents were from, which is they're from New York. And my whole entire family is from New York. Then later on, I realized that's not what they were asking me. So I'm like, okay, I'm from England. Almost every single time someone will sit there and say, you don't have an accent. No. So it was always one of those questions that I loathed to sit there and hear, or they'd be like, okay, England, like United Kingdom? Yes. Then they start going down the path of, were your parents in the military? Right? I would answer yes. And then one time I said, no, they're a diplomat. They know how to sit there and, respond to that. But it's interesting how people automatically want to put you in a category so they know how they're going to treat you or how to have conversations with you. One of the other things I don't like, as I gotten older as well, too, is, where'd you go to school? Then it goes to, well, what was your major? And it goes to all of these other things to put you in, I call it a caste, but to sit there and really put you into these categories of how they are going to have a communication with you. I had one person tell me when they found out that I had an MBA, oh, that's why you're smart. I was like, no, that's not why I'm smart. I had parents that poured into me that were big on education. And I've actually got an opportunity to grow up and see things that were in history books. I got to touch it. I got an opportunity to do certain things. One of my favorite stories of my father just being a hero of mine is we would go to concentration camps in Germany, and one of them we went to was Dachau. So I have moved to the States by now, by that time, and the history teacher was having a conversation, and she was talking about the concentration camps. Always coming from an environment where I was able to sit there and correct the teacher, but in a polite way. I corrected her. She didn't like it, so she kicked me out of the class. And I went to the principal's office, and they called my father. And it's very interesting because I'm confused and lost of, what just happened. And my father right there with the principal and the teacher looked me right in the face and said, what happened? And I told him what happened. I corrected her in it because she said the wrong statement. And my father turned around and looked at the principal and the teacher, and then turned around and looked at the teacher and said, she's correct, and started saying where he had took us to. So she changed her tone. She was all excited, asked if I can bring pictures. My father told her, which is one of my favorite part, since you embarrassed her in the class, you need to apologize to her in front of the class. And he did. And he stood in the back of the classroom while she did that. And I went up and I showed the pictures that we had at Dachau, and I walked them through it. That is the power of knowledge. And my father would always sit there and say, it's not important just to know your history. It's important to know all history and be able to talk to people at all levels. And that's one of the things that has been a best lesson. Another lesson is the fact that we were immersed in the countries in which we lived in, which gave me a different perspective of how to think about people. We're all human, want the same thing. We all love. We all have hard times. We just have different backgrounds. So with that global experience and that knowledge, it has helped me on how I think about people. My deepest passion is helping people. I watched it growing up. Didn't realize what was going on until I got older and I was in that situation. My parents have always opened their doors to help people. And living overseas, people don't have their families. A lot of the single soldiers are there, so they would always come to our house for the holidays, for, just barbecues or whatever. They both did that, either for a soldier or whoever they was working underneath them or what have you, or working with. So they always brought in community and not sitting there treating people less than, but also to sit there and help where you can. And so I naturally like helping people and don't look for anything in return. And when you sit there and you hear later down the road of how you impact someone's life, because they remember something that you said, is the most rewarding thing ever. I do take it to heart when, if I hurt someone. And I've been told, and it was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a realistic one of when I get frustrated that I become condescending. And I had to really get to the root of that. That's also something I have inherited. And it's just not myself. My siblings do the same thing too. Other people in my family do the same thing. So it is an inheritance that we've had. So I am really mindful of how I'm making other people feel, because the last thing I want to do is make someone feel less than because of my words that I've said. And I don't want to be condescending to someone in my time of being frustrated or just period. So my career path has two lives. One, the military, and then the civilian side of it. When I joined the military, I joined in the Army as a active soldier, a service member. So chemical ordnance is what I did, so I was quartermaster and all that other beautiful stuff that's there. Loved it. Did not think I was going to get out of it. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was around. When I got pregnant with my oldest son, I wasn't allowed to be around chemicals. So they had put me in what they call the orderly room. And at the end of the day, the orderly room was just an HR department for that local company, branch, or division, or whatever that may be. So I kind of learned that from there. And I'm like, okay, this is not bad. And then once I had him, I went right back into it. Then I got pregnant and married with my second child. I'm in Germany and 9/11 happens. And one of the things my ex-husband said at that time was, one of us need to get out. And because I was pregnant, one of the things they do is they let you out on a pregnancy waiver. And that's what I did to sacrifice that. And I really didn't want to, because the military was going to be my career. That wasn't his view of what he wanted to sit there and do. But because I felt with being a woman, it was my duty to sit there and do that. And I remember distinctly, I'm pregnant. I'm in my mother's house because he's getting ready to deploy. And he changed the car insurance. I had, was it Nationwide for years, and he had changed it to USAA. Even though that was the best way to go, especially from a savings and all the stuff they do for soldiers, he didn't ask me. He just did it. And I remember standing there crying, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I lost my independence." Like, that was the very first thing that came out. So I pushed hard to regain what I lost. So I started, after I had my my son, he ended up getting stationed in Virginia, which was really good. So it made it just easier. And that's where I was at that time. And so I would work down in Virginia Beach, temp jobs, and I would do it as well in Northern Virginia. And then I landed a job down in Virginia Beach, but then I got also an offer in Arlington, Virginia. That was a 2-hour trip. So I would do a 2-hour trip from Virginia Beach, drop the kids off at Stafford, Virginia, go to Arlington. So just in case I couldn't pick them up in enough time, my parents could, and then truck it back. Then it got to a point that I would just stay there during a weekday and then, drive home. So I was really I was blinded by getting back my independence. Now that I'm just thinking about it from hindsight being 2020. So I started off at a defense contracting company. At that time, I didn't have a degree. So I was going to school, raising the kids, commuting back and forth, and being a spouse at that time as well. And I was an HR administrator, so at the lowest level, almost close to like a file clerk, but up there just doing all open enrollment stuff. And I remember saying that by the time I hit 40, I was going to be a CHRO. That was the goal. I immersed myself all in HR, in business and everything. And my climb has been to that. And I reached that goal. I was in my 40s when I became that. But it was something I obtained with, 2 degrees and a certification. A challenging time is when I lost my belief that I was worthy. So when my ex-husband came to me, we got orders to go to Germany. And I was sitting at the computer logging our DVDs that we had. So he comes up and he says that he wanted a divorce and that my father told him to divorce me. I didn't believe him on that part, because when I sit there and I tell you I was a daddy's girl, everything rised and shined with him, to the point that I named my oldest son after him. My dad, nothing, you can say anything. That I went to him for everything for advice. I would have conversations, you could not say anything about that. But it kept lingering a little bit. And so I started questioning it later on. So I think that was 2005, 2006, one of those. I didn't get the divorce finally until 2009. And then 2011, 2011, 2012, I can't remember. I ended up getting hospitalized with pericarditis, which I talk about in the book. And he comes in and I pose a question to him. Hey, such and such said this. Did you say it? He said, yes, I was in a dark place. And so the person that should know you the best, and that you will call and the shoulder that you lean on, would say that, it's just okay, there must be something wrong with me that he's saying, maybe something he sees. And it took me some years to get through it. And one of the things I talk about in the book as well is, I want to say, I don't remember what year it was. It was either 2016, no, it was 2018, because my youngest was 16 years old. We reconciled, my ex-husband and I. And he made a statement that it wasn't him. It wasn't me. It was him and what he was going through. And he wasn't used to the life that I introduced him to. Because he saw what my parents had, and how can I give her that if they have this? And I remember certain things. So he felt that he couldn't provide for me, even though that's not what he meant when we were in Germany and what have you, but that was his truth. And we healed from that piece of it. And, my father and I also had a really candid conversation in Vegas, walking and talking about it as well, too. And even though he said it, he was going through whatever he was going through, meaning my father, with his marriage with my mother, because they got a divorce after 33 years. They're human. And I can be upset at him, but at the end of the day, that serves what purpose? My father has always been there my whole entire life. He hasn't treated me any less than. He had one moment that he did that had a major impact on my life and my kids' life. But I'm not going to damn him for it. And it was something I needed to work on myself from a worthy standpoint, that I know that I'm worth it. Sometimes we feel that we're alone, and we're not. Think about this almost like a book club. It's a community. It's a community to help each other through our tough times and our enriching times. This book is, again, a guide and a mirror for all of us. I wrote it for that. Yes, I've broken some glasses through this, and I've gotten a couple of scars, but I'm quite sure you have as well. It's not a depressing book, so definitely that. There's some funny moments in there as well, too. I don't go in talking, it's not a memoir, so I'm not going there talking about my life the whole entire time. So it's just tying in personal as well as professional, and really making us, from a challenging standpoint, question why are we accepting some of the things that we shouldn't? Why are we allowing others to sit there and define who we are? We should be defining who we are. So one of the very first questions I ask people is, who are you? If you take your accolades away, if you take your titles, who are you? So let's enjoy this journey together. I'll see you on the other side.
Used to make excuses for the way I felt inside.